So, in this conversation, we're talking about creating and sustaining communities of practice globally, which you've all done, in these major hubs. This is important because this is the next step for us, right? We're gonna have to do this without funding. We're gonna have to do this with our own resources. So, moving from, this is Kibibi Ajanku. Raise your hand, Kibibi. Kibibi Ajanku is a multidisciplinary artist and curator, born and raised in Baltimore, with roots all over. She's also traveled internationally. And Mr. Sorrell Eugene Greene. Yay! Sorrell Eugene Greene, for 30-something years, has led programs in the city of Washington to, which allow senior adults, he's a recreational specialist, but he's also a multidisciplinary artist. And it's because of him that many of our artists actually have places to practice their work. And Kibibi has done the same thing through her gallery and also through her dance company, Sankofa. And she also teaches at Coppin and Micah. So she's engaging younger people, and Mr. Greene engages seniors in the creative process. And to his right, my left, is Elaine Robnette Moore, who is a jewelry designer, a real estate agent, an international developer. What else? A teacher. She's a Fulbright scholar. And she is responsible for actually teaching jewelry design internationally in places where you think indigenous art should just be able to take over. And people should be able to do it naturally. She, and next to her, Fenton Sands, try to use, Fenton's wife, Cynthia, Cynthia Sands, have used their skill in international art and international relations to build sustainable, self-sustaining communities abroad. Is that fair to say? Okay. His specialty is agriculture. His wife is the multidisciplinary artist, and our friend Cynthia Sands. But Fenton has been doing this in agriculture. I think, what is it? This is the third generation in your family?
Yep.
Third generation working abroad in Africa? Okay. So we're gonna start, I'm gonna start here and work here, okay? Because it's about what's going on there and how we get it here, how we get it into our communities, how you all have been able to do it. Fenton, can you kind of lay out a big picture about what it means for Black artists or Black people to go to Africa, and what what the help has meant over the years? What have you observed?
Yeah, some of this depends on the era and time that you would go. For Cynthia and I, it goes back into the mid-1970s. And we first went to the Congo, Zaire, which is extremely rich cultural context. It was the first time that Cynthia lived overseas. She'd been overseas once or twice, but for us it was quite an experience. When we first got there, we had no children. So we got into a lot of the culture and the vibes of Zaire. And I think that it had a profound influence on her to see this extremely rich art. A lot of people probably have not seen a lot of Congolese art, unfortunately, but I mean, Zaire is probably one of the culturally richest countries I've ever been to in terms of music, fabric. There's social, cultural context. It's a country at, 250 different languages. So after Zaire, we both went back to school, and I joined the Foreign Service again, and went to Uganda. At that time, again, this is like the mid-'80s, And a lot of Ugandans had not really seen and met that many Black Americans. So it really made a difference in being able to, relate to people and get involved. Cynthia was an extremely curious person. She's very adventurous and had no qualms asking questions and giving advice and so forth. But I would say that bark cloth was one of the things that really thrilled her. Bark cloth is a fiber, and they often make it from banana leaf or the bark of the banana tree. They pound it and make it very soft. One time they often used it as garments, clothing. So she was fascinated with that, and in fact has kept a lot of it that she used to this day, or to more recently, where she's using it as the foundation for painting and doing quilting or anything like that. And then from Uganda, we went to Morocco. And in Morocco, she got exposed to the Arab culture and designs and things like that. And I would say that the Eye of Hand of Fatima was probably one of the most important things to her. And in Uganda and also in Morocco, she started trying to use her batik and screen printing skills, and started to do motifs. Like in Morocco, she did the Hand of Fatima that she would screen print, and then she made t-shirts, and they became very popular. And a lot of Moroccans also kind of saw what she was doing and thought that was kind of interesting, of how to take that kind of motif and turn it into sort of a commercial thing. She sold some at the school there and expatriate community. And then from Morocco, we went to Egypt, and again she was exposed to a different bit of the Arab culture, and they're both in North Africa and have a lot of Arab culture. But she also got into the Berber designs. The Berbers are the more traditional, particularly Moroccans. And she studied that very carefully and closely, had a lot of interaction with the art community. And the same thing, even if I go back to Zaire, where it turns out that we came across a carver, somewhat by accident, when she was trying to find the Beaux-Arts, which was a community place for artisans. And so from meeting this guy who was a carver was an entree to meeting some of the artisans in the Congo. And that's how she did it. Same thing in Morocco, same thing in Egypt. And then from Egypt, we went to Ghana. And again, Ghana was one of the most profound experiences for her. Because now, she was a textile artist, and the Ghanaians are very much into textiles. You'd say somewhat more than, say, the Moroccans or the Egyptians per se. Except in Egypt, she came across the best cotton in the world. And the cotton takes the dyes like no other product would. So she went to Ghana and got exposed to the West African motif, tie-dye, batiking, which was something she was very familiar with, but now she's working with the artisans, and had a lot of interactions with the Ghanaians. And it got to the point where she befriended this one guy who was a batik and tie-dye artist, and they became so close that she set up shop in our backyard. So this guy was doing tie-dye and batiking in the back of our house. I mean, from morning to evening time, and she started a relationship with this guy that lasted for over 30 years.
No.
And he benefited a lot from her because she was bringing her own skills of doing batik and the colors, and she was trying to get him to break away from too much traditional imagery. And if you know anybody's been to West Africa, their colors can be so vibrant.
Yeah.
You know, she said, you know, you got to tone it down a little bit, particularly if you want Westerners to be interested in what you do. And then the designs and so forth, there was a lot of ebb and flow between the two of them. And if anybody knows Cynthia, she can be pretty demanding, uncompromising. And the guy, fortunately, he was stubborn. But you can imagine over 30 years, they began to have a really nice relationship. And then she learned a lot more how to do stamping on material, because that's what the Ghanaians would do. And then if anybody's seen batiking and so forth, the whole challenge of, you know, the base color you start with and then you get it to another color, it's almost like you have to think in reverse. And I was always fascinated to see how they would do it, and I would just see it. You know, I'd come home and I'd see these pieces of cloth, this red, blue, green, spread out in the backyard. Come back 2 days later, and you see all the transformation. She struggled with trying to make sure it didn't get too complicated. And that's where they had this relationship. Well, she tried to then take this to another level of trying to get garments made.
Yeah.
And she had this idea that she would develop a clothing line from this exposure. Well, the big challenge then was tailoring. I'd have to admit the Ghanaians were not terribly good at tailoring in the sense of keeping to the exact dimensions of, you know, your sleeves,
Yeah.
the length. And one of the best examples was she designed these ties, which were really beautiful. But when she had the guys make it, you'd have a tie that's, you know, 3 times longer than it should be, another tie that's half the length that it should be, too wide, too thin. They were beautiful, and I kept a lot of them, and I used to go to events wearing these ties, and everybody would look and say, "Where'd you get that?" I say, "Well, my wife made it." And they wanted them, but she never kept it up. But she went on to doing a lot of clothes, using the Ghanaian fabric. And then the other thing she did was she, in her being very much into many different art forms, she got with these metal workers and came up with this idea of making these candles using like Adinkra symbols and so forth. And they're really beautiful. They usually were black, and they'd be different heights. And she did several of them, and that again was interesting struggle with coming up with the designs and working with the artisan and getting the dimensions right, the style right. And you know, that's one of the challenges with a lot of African artists, is this thing of standardization and repeating something the same. It's partly because they themselves are very creative, and they don't think in terms of doing 20 of something per se. They're used to doing things, you know, in great variation. And of course, a lot of their garments and things are very loose fitting, and they're not, you know, tight like some of ours are. And that was a good ebb and flow with what Cynthia was conceptualizing. And then she came up with this idea of doing a particular type of dress that some people may know, that she developed this dress that she calls a market dress.
Best ever.
Yeah. It's the one out of many different designs really a lot of people really liked. We had left, Ghana came to the United States when Cynthia finally told me that enough of this traveling around. We got to come back to the States. We got to get a house. You've been promising me that for 20 years. So I agree with that in that sense. So we initially bought her family home, but it was real small. And then she tried this import-export idea, which was a bit difficult because of a lot of issues that are involved in bringing items from Africa to the United States. There is this program called AGOA, which is an agreement between the United States and many different countries. Particularly, say Ghana was actually one of the first countries that they initiated this, where an African product, if it's made, say, in Ghana, could come into the United States duty-free or very marginal duty. So that was one idea that which stimulated her to come up with this concept of that became known as well. There's two things. I mean, clearly, there's her artwork, and then she had this idea of developing a clothing line, and that was a little bit of a conflict with her because she was very artistic, and the discipline of trying to develop a clothing line and so forth takes a different mentality and way that she found kind of really challenging. That I had to help her a lot with some of that. But what she was able to do was she got one of the things that some people may know, that where she developed this idea of this aquaba doll, as she calls, which comes from the Ghanaian traditional aquaba doll. And her kind of redesigning it came from the fact that many years ago in the 60s and 70s, she had drawn dolls, and then she colored them, and then she would cut them out. And then when she went to Ghana, and she looked at that shape, and she says, you know, that is a little bit similar to her idea of these dolls. So she said, well, let me see if I can kind of make this into a three-dimensional carved doll. And that's how this idea evolved. And her first dolls were basically of one or two colors. She showed them to the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian loved them and bought a bunch of them and sold them in their museum gift shop. Well, she wasn't happy with the fact that the Smithsonian took the lion's share of the profit, and that was very discouraging, but at least was giving her an idea that it's something that people might like. She also worked with some suppliers in Ghana to get some of their stuff into the Smithsonian gift shop. She worked with her connections in Morocco to get Moroccan items in the gift shops too. And by now, my youngest son was helping her a lot. And then she started this thing of going back to Ghana and going back to Morocco. And in Morocco, she met a small sewing company, which was a little bit by accident. She tells me how she came across them. But anyway, she went and talked with him and said, what about tailoring some of her ideas, garment ideas? And he said, fine. So she talked to him about her designs, and then she brought fabric that she had done in Ghana to Morocco, and he cut them out and made some of those market dresses at the very end of her series were actually tailored in Morocco, and some other things that she had done there. Didn't do much out of Egypt, other than trying to source their cotton, which is definitely the best. Well, she wanted to, one of her ideas was to bring the guy that she worked with so closely, Fifi, to the United States and give him an opportunity to get exposed to the kind of Western scene. And it didn't completely work out, partly because, you know, for a young man like him to get a visa here can be a little bit difficult. And we know of other young artists who have come and overstayed their visa and gotten all kinds of trouble. So we told them, be very careful. And one of her dreams was to also create an artist studio facility in South Carolina, where her family is originally from. And she thought of this idea of creating an artist center where she would bring artists from mainly Africa to the United States, meet, American, particularly Black American artists, and develop a workshop and a training center in South Carolina. She developed a proposal. It didn't quite materialize, but that was always a dream of hers. Unfortunately, just couldn't happen. The other experience she had was she did a number of consultancies herself, where she did it in the Cameroon, Benin, where she would do these training centers or training exercises with, like one was for AGOA, and then another place that she did it actually was also Guyana, which is another country that we went to. And some of this was done with centers for the purpose of taking women who were looking for other sources of income. And she was showing them how they could take old clothes and do tie-dye with them, or batik and so forth, and create a whole new item. Also true with one center was a place where they had people that were suffering from HIV/AIDS, and they couldn't get a regular job. So she was training them in this workshop of how to do, again, the same thing, take an old t-shirt, transform it into something totally new and different for themselves or their family, and some of them got very entrepreneurial and collected like particularly white t-shirts or white shirts, and made something different out of it, and they sold them, made a little bit of money. I could go on and on about something, but let me just, I'll mention one thing that she had worked on was where she wanted to take her knowledge of designs in West Africa called the Senufu designs, and she wanted to come up with these different motifs of creating the background to these designs were her fabric, and then she would take the symbols and overlay them, and her idea was that she thought something like this might be useful for other artists who might want to have ideas of what they could do with blending different styles and different ideas. So this is kind of a draft mock-up where she ran into the typical problem of going from a draft idea to a full-blown, product of a booklet that's that intricate was not easy.
No.
Uh,
Thank you.
I think I'll pause there.
I'm sorry, because that's a great story. That book, I didn't know you had gotten that far, so that's amazing. But the other three people, we'll start with Kibibi and then work this way. Kibibi's also spent a lot of time overseas, as has Elaine. And one of the things that they have done is brought the culture back, just like Cynthia, and how they incorporated it into building communities of practice, but basically folk schools or schools. They teach what they've learned overseas and taken what they've learned here overseas. Can you tell a little bit about that? And then we can.
I can. I have a PowerPoint, and I'm going to not lean into it, but use it to guide me quickly. So I'm gonna flip very, very quickly. I do have a table there, and there are cards. Please get in touch with me if you want to know more. Please, yeah, I'm here. This is pretty much an overview. Camila asked me to talk about how I work and then bring it back to community. So this is kind of an overview. I don't know this computer, and now I'm standing in front of it. Okay, let me try something different. All right. Click the thing. Okay. All right, so I'm an artist and a curator, but I never stray far away from being an educator because I am the daughter of educators. I am the granddaughter of a quilt maker. So it is important to tell stories. It's important to just make sure that we use who we are as a lens, or at least for me, for the making and all that I do. I'm actually not only a fiber artist, but an indigo artist. My work as a fiber artist, it's my life journey. It shows up in everything I do. If you look at my table, whether it is a print or otherwise, there's some indigo in there, and it is something that's come out of my vat or been sourced in West Africa. Hence indigo. It's a lived history, right? That allows for a beautifully authentic voice. All right, I'm not gonna do it. You can find indigo in the pyramids, right? It was called the Pharaoh's dye. At some point in time, that indigo was used to dye the Pharaoh's sail because boats knew they needed to part the way so that the Pharaoh could come through. Everyone else's sail was white. So as you look at the pyramid and the deities, you find brown people, you find dark people, and those people connect directly to the Nubians who connect directly to West Africa, flip it. And so in Nigeria, it is said that this is the belly of indigo for West Africa. These dark blues, these black blues, these blues that dye your skin blue. Oh, I didn't say that. Yeah. These blues that dye your skin blue. But we need to do some work because the indigo pits are going away. It is a slow process. It is not something that you just dip in and a deep, rich blue like this. It takes 14 passes through the indigo vat. Aerating, getting darker. Dip, aerate, get darker. Dip, air, and so it's a process. But in America, indigo came on the backs of chattel slavery, right? Indigo takes a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of people. An indigo plantation took a lot of free labor, right? At some point in time, indigo as a cash crop, rivaled rice and cotton in South Carolina. Right? The know-how, there's one person, when you are in South Carolina and you research indigo, you get one name, and that name does not look like anybody in this room, right? That name does not look like the folk that made indigo what it was. That know-how came from West Africa, and indigo actually changed the face of the slave trade. It really did. Connecting past and present and future. It's beautiful, it's magical. I'm flipping through because I got a lot. That's me in Nigeria. That's me in Oshobo working on, like, that one piece of cloth that I'm working on. I worked on that for 30 days. Those are the dye pits in Oshobo, and as you can see, they're in disrepair. Indigo takes a long time. And all of those folk in this picture, they're using chemical dyes. They're using natural techniques, handmade techniques, but they're getting them done fast by using bright, vibrant chemical dyes. Those are the colors that the tourists want these days, right? At the dye pits. Indigo adire. We talk about adire being it's a printing technique. It can be done either in the oldest way possible through cassava paste as a dye resist, through a tie and dye technique. People say tie dye. Well, we're talking about adire oniko, straight out of Nigeria, right? That's cassava paste. And those feathers are used as brush strokes, as brushes. The straight edge is used to make lines straight. 30 days working on that, right? 30 days. It was great though, really, really great. And then the last technique, batik, it is quicker, it is faster, it is a face of, you can hand paint it, you can do many things, and it's stable. That wax is very, very stable, where the cassava paste is much more sensitive. The batik is going to make you a white, crisp line. Preparing the vat. When I do a vat, it takes me a natural vat. It's not even ready for 3 days, right? It takes that much for the vat to mature before you can even dye in it. So it's a process that's filled with a lot of love and meditation. Okay, not fast. So, in my idea, I think that this is converging into one thing, past, present, and future all at one time. I use elements of African tradition as a lens to create it, and through this I examine Africa, but I also immerse myself in it. I also am a lens for people to see themselves in the art that I do, see the world, see the connections in the art that I do. Through art, I investigate culture and identity. My way of working is ethnically charged. And I think that this is a reconnection that is a healing, a worthwhile healing effort. That was de-waxing day. Double bubble boil and trouble in that big pot. Some of my dolls A couple of them are in this exhibition here, She Sees and Indigo Magic. Patchwork Origins, connecting fabrics that touch Africa. And then using myself as the portal to come out, a portal and a lens that comes out and becomes something new, a new occurrence. That's what this exhibition is. It's a new occurrence. It is people using their inspiration and the lens that touches them. And this work is a new occurrence. It's something that's never conceptualized. You move yourself out of the way. I think I heard Gloria say that she put, and many people have said they put the work, they surround themselves in the supplies and the resources and then let it do what it do. We are portals and then what we see, what you see, what you're experiencing here. And if you haven't been through this exhibition, I know we got to close today. Come back and take some time and engage with the artwork. Baobab tree in West Africa, it is a spirit tree, right? These are some of the quilts, art quilts that I make. Indigo all over them. Art dolls. Costuming. There's a book about this company, my company, Sankofa Dance Theater, in there. If you haven't seen it, go to my website, find it, get it, buy it. And just as you talked about a project and a book, that was about 3 years of my life and about $30,000, so buy the book. Oh, we gotta go, okay.
Yeah, we gotta go.
All right.
I wanted to get, but her book is outside, and you have to get to her website and her Facebook page, Kibibi Ajanku.
Yeah. And I'm gonna stop, but I'm just saying that all of this, what Camila wanted me to talk about was community. All of this is nothing if it's not shared with community. And so when we talk about this exhibition, and Francine says, yeah, many of these people we met, I engaged with her work 30 years ago in Sun Gallery. I met, I was young, I didn't know, I mean, you know, I was really shy. I used to be really, really shy. I used to be really, really shy. But I would go in Sun Gallery like, oh my God, if I could just get one pair of earrings and a rock. Oh, wow. You know, and so we have engaged over and over again. We continue here because we touch community. We keep working because we keep sharing. That's.
Thank you.
Thank
But I want you to hear what Elaine and quickly, Elaine and Mr. Greene, who's going to close out, why it's important to keep these programs going. Elaine, can you tell them, I know it's brief, but talk about your work and how you got into it and how you bring it back to America.
Hopefully everybody can hear me. I know that I speak softly and, okay.
Just hold.
Just hold. Oh, good idea. Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
I started making jewelry about 40 years ago. Before that, and this is just the, okay. Before that, I was in real estate development, and this is a housing complex that I built in East St. Louis. So my background was not a focus on art. This complex, as it says here, in today's terms would be $23 million to do. Back then it was $3 million. It was, what's important about this is it establishes my social justice work because I did this with a black architect. I did this with a black contracting company There were only 3 in the whole United States that could be bonded for $3 million back in that day. And so it was built by blacks, with blacks, for blacks. In today's times, this complex is a current picture of what was built in the 70s. Mostly housing projects back then did not last this long. So I'm very proud of this project. And I spoke with one of the women that, by accident, I spoke with her to check on when I was applying for Fulbright. I spoke with them to say, well, when was it built? Because I couldn't remember, and I forgot that I could Google it. So I called, and the woman said, you don't remember me, but I was one of your first tenants. And I used to tell my tenants, which were mostly single women with as head of households, that what you do is use this as a stepping point to get your life together and go on back to school, get your house in order, and then you can step out. She said, I tell people now that that's what they can do. She manages that project. She went back to school. She is now married and bought a house, and she tells the new tenants that come in that you can do this too. This is some of my work. This is a painting that my aunt did at 80 something, and 90, sorry, at 90, and that I took and translated into a piece. I come from 5 generations of artists, and we can trace our ancestry back to, what's his name? Thank you, Alexander Dumas, who wrote the Three Musketeers and the Count of Monte Cristo. So in every single generation, we have artists who are documented and at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, or at the Historical Museum in St. Louis, and I'm from the Midwest. These are pieces of my work. And, okay, sorry. This is me doing, I teach jewelry making and micro business development globally. So this is me in Malaysia. And the piece in the center, which I'm really proud of, is done with old containers of the tops of juice boxes. And that's a runway show in Malaysia, a fashion show that piece went down the aisle of, which just goes to show you how you can recycle materials. When I'm working with artists, that's what I teach. And when I'm working with primarily young women in third world countries that need to have a sense of income or of economic means that they can use within their homes, and so that's what I teach. This is in Jos, Nigeria, Abuja, Nigeria, Cochin, Malaysia, Barbados, and throughout the Caribbean. This is really important for especially women, but for people in general when it comes to developing a source of income. And the key thing that I do that's somewhat different is help with product development. So, for instance, in Abuja and in Nigeria, there were artists who had, in Oshobo, okay, there were artists who had drums, but those drums were huge drums. In order to appeal to the tourist market, we helped them tailor that down to coffee table drums that tourists could take back. And that's just one example. And I'm being told that I have to stop. So, let's see, I think that's, oh wait. That's my grandson's work. And the books that I have written, I wrote the first manual on how to make beaded jewelry for the country of Rwanda. I was commissioned to do that by the country of Rwanda. I since have created a book on jewelry making for here. This is my book, which documents quotes I have found useful in my lifetime, that I have documented how they manifested, and included pictures of my jewelry. Once, it only took me 15 years to do that one. But this was the condensed version with just the quotes. I did these books because I have 5 children, 18 grandchildren, and 18 and 2 on the way great-grandchildren. It is important as women that we document our lives, and so that our descendants know who they come from and have some idea of what we as women have thought. And that's enough.
Mr. Greene. Mr.
Okay,
Eugene.
I don't know how you came up with the idea of putting me last. Fenton alluded to the fact that he could go on and on and on and on, and I could go even further than that. But to make it real quick, I was just informed yesterday that I would be doing this, so no, I don't have slides or examples of my work. But what I've been doing for the last 36 years, I've been working with the senior residents of the District of Columbia. I'm a recreation specialist with the Department of Parks and Recreation, and my focus has been on the arts, exposing seniors to the arts. With that, I've been located at various recreation centers throughout the city, and each one of those I've kind of called in the troops. My dear friend Francine Haskell, where's Francine? She's back there probably packing up. But Francine and Julie and other local artists, I've always called on them to come and work with me with these seniors, doing various programs and whatnot, because, you know, when you get older, they kind of like push you to the wayside. And, you know, unfortunately, that's how it is in this country. Old people don't feel wanted anymore. Well, I know for a fact there are a lot of older people in the district as well as in Maryland who are artists and still want to do art, still want to be here. So I expose them to various people like Francine and other people to come in and teach classes. And that brings out of them their creativity, because number one, it definitely prevents isolation, which, you know, brings on depression. And there are a lot of folks, especially older folks, that are just wasting away. So when I know about these people, I try to bring them to, like, I already got a plan to bring them here, to let them see this exhibit, because there are quilters among that group. There are jewelry artists among that group. I just recently was down at the John C. Campbell Folk School in Brasstown, North Carolina. It was an amazing experience. I got to meet Elaine. I want to share this with you all real quick. Now, I'm a jewelry maker, right? Now, Camila introduced me as a multi-discipline or disciplined artist. That too, because I'm inspired by everybody that does art, whether it's a dingra, or jewelry, or carving. You know, put me in a room with carvers, I'm gonna start carving. Put me in a room with jewelry makers, I'm gonna be doing jewelry. So whatever it is, Camila and them, they recruited me this time around to do trees. So I had to come in this room right here, and I'm all over the place drawing cardboard trees. And as you can see, they're up on the wall. Now, when we were in New York, Julie Dickinson Thompson was the one who drew the trees, and I helped her cut them out. Well, she passed that baton on to me. And I didn't see why. And then Francine came up with the idea of doing the barking. So, but again, scraping the tree, okay? Creating barking.
Anyway, but to move this real quickly, I just want to say that it's important for me when I work with these seniors, because I know when they're doing these things, it's helping them. Sewing or threading a needle, they're sustaining their motor skills. I even teach seniors how to ride ATV vehicles. So when we were down in Brasstown, we had a golf cart, and they asked me if I was able, you know, to drive a golf cart. And I told them, I said, well, actually, I'm a certified ATV instructor. I teach seniors how to ride ATVs, because we do have ATV vehicles down at the resident camp in Southern Maryland, where I actually take seniors down every summer. And we teach them how to ride. Now, they don't ride all through the woods and whatnot, and mud splashing each other, but they do actually suit up, and we teach them the safety steps in riding an ATV successfully. So, but again, part of what I do is making sure that the elder community can still be vibrant and do what they do and not feel like they're just not part of society. So with that, I think maybe I better be quiet, because I might be his record. I don't want to be like Senator Booker and be up in 26 hours talking about my experiences, but I do want to thank Camila for this opportunity to be here and speak in front of you all. But it's very important. Thank you all for coming, because the support is definitely needed. And just stay in touch with us, because with Camila doing what she's doing, and Dr. Diana back there doing with the Alliance, we got a lot coming down the pike, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. So thank you.
What they described, we're gonna have to be able to do this without funding. And the funding, and which may be, as you said, a very good thing, because with the funding comes strengths, right? But the picture that, you know, what they have described, and Fenton has gone through, Cynthia's detailed experience across the country, the continent, all of these people, will we be able to do this? Are we motivated to do it? The other thing is that they're bringing all that, and it's not that just that they're going to the continent to absorb information, you're bringing it back, and you're training young people and older people, correct? So how is Kibibi, Elaine, how is Fenton, who's working on so many, you know, he should have retired. I don't know how many times he told me you were retired, Fenton. And they keep calling him back to the continent. How are we going to do this? It's, as Kimberly says, we're going to be responsible. The arts community globally, and it's not just Black people, it's globally being attacked. Why are they attacking the arts community?
Because you think.
What did you say?
Because you can think.
Because you can think. And you're not thinking in the box. Right? This is not new. We lived through Cambodia. Yes?
Because our community will expose through art the injustices.
Yes. What else? But how is the arts community going to fight back? You know, that's the point of this. When, especially Kibibi and Mr. Greene, when they came to Washington and Baltimore are now big cultural hubs.
Yes.
They weren't that when we were growing up. It took this kind of energy, right? It took all of y'all working together. We're back to 1964. What do you think, Fenton? It felt like I felt the thought coming out of your head.
No, I was thinking of fundraising, where if we have shows like this or events like this, that a certain portion of it is given back to the unit that brought it together, things like that. I know for, sort of speaking on behalf of Cynthia with some of her stuff, she would be quite willing and desirous of that, because we've talked about these kinds of things. I mean, her another dream, as I said, was to be able to bring African artists here and to, you know, it's tricky now, but if they came, and like the guy Fifi that she worked with a lot, he could have, he could do demonstrations and get people to pay for it. In fact, Cynthia did it in our backyard. People wanted to learn some of her techniques. So that maybe if there's some way we can build on that.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you all for not just for your attitude, but for sustaining the communities that you sustain. I appreciate it. Sorry it's rushed. Don't do me, do them. Okay. Oh, I'm saying about my, I'm Topo Gijo. This is Pam Rogers, who's the project director. You say your thing, Pam.
Okay, well, my thing is that all artists connected, we all connected in communities. And it's been that way always and will always be that way. So we just have to embrace that for ourselves. We're not individuals doing just one thing, we are a community doing something. So I just want to leave that idea with everyone that we as a community need to support our arts and our artists and make this grow even bigger. This is only the third time, but it's not the last time that we'll all be together.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
If you get a couple of